Based on the case of Pacific Acceptance vs. Forsyth, the issue arises when the plaintiff incurs losses due to the auditor's negligence. Pacific Acceptance had the engagement with the auditor. The audit of the company's account was left to audit clerks for most of the time, involving several persons. The audit clerks accept the work and start the work. They performed the audit without monitored by the chief auditor. Consequently, irregularities discovered by one person were not followed by the other, causing the report to be inaccurate and misleading. At last, auditor come out with qualified audit opinion without the Pacific's consent. And the Pacific is determined to sue the auditors due to auditor's negligence that made the company suffer losses.
The first issue is failing to check on audit staff. It is proven that the auditor negligence due to failure to properly supervise or check on the work of their audit staff and is liable for the negligence of the audit partner or the subordinates. This happens due to the inexperience or carelessness of the audit partner in performing the audit. It causes the breach of duty of care as the plaintiff has the right to sue the auditor.
The second issue is not able to comply with audit procedure and audit regulation on the planning where the auditor dependent has discovered irregular or unusual matter that lead to fraud and illegal activities in company. Due to this problem, the initial audit plan must take place again as the auditor does discover unusual activity, but he did not go back over initial audit plan and also did not try to determine the true financial position of the company. Failure to prepare adequately or execute these processes will expose the audit to court criticism.
Okay, in this case also, there is no assurance in audit testing. It is because in Pacific Acceptance, it was rules that slightly the document related to material must satisfy the auditor, which is there is no additional audit time and effort to analyze the documentation, which makes that this auditor is not having an assurance towards the company. So basically, they don't hire another third person to validate or even to interpret the audit client documentation.
The next issue in this case is an auditor was not perform the duty that he's supposed to do as auditors when he found uncovered fraud or having suspicion of fraud in the course of audit. He failed to promptly report to the director about the issue happens in the company. The auditor should examine the internal control and promptly report to the management about the weaknesses which provide opportunities for fraud. This act shows that the auditor was breached his duty of care due to negligence in detecting the fraud that happens in the company. According to the court decision in Pacific Acceptance Corporation versus Forsyth 1970, where the defendant, which is auditor, failed to detect fraud by an employee of the plaintiff, the auditor were held liable because the way they conduct the audit did not meet the standard of the law. So far, he has the opinion that the auditor must approach the audit with a sense of professionalism. In other words, it was the auditor's negligence that made the company suffer loss. If not, the company cannot sue the auditor for negligence but may still sue for breach of contract.